Welcome back to my Nightmare Matchup series where I talk about nightmare matchups for champions in every division. And this will be the fourth nightmare matchup video of this series and the second one of the calendar year 2024. And this will be titled Nightmare Matchups for Champs in Each Division 2024 Continued, because since my last video in January, so much has happened, and I predicted that we would see the title change hands in multiple weight classes, which is exactly what's happened. And since the last video I did, we've seen about 5 different new champions. And I want to talk about the nightmare matchups for each of these new champions, along with some of the newer nightmare matchups for some of the current champions we already have. And as always, I'm going to start in order. And the weight class I'm going to start with is the women's strawweight division. And of course, the strawweight champion is none other than Magnum Zhang Weili, 2-time strawweight champion. She's held this belt since getting it back for the last 2 years with 2 title defenses. And ever since Rose Namajunas left this division to pursue a career in flyweight, it just seems like Weili is in a league of her own. However, I do believe there are still women out there that could potentially pose threats, that could potentially challenge her. And one of them being the #1 contender who's undefeated. And that woman's name is Tatiana Suarez. Tatiana Suarez is the best wrestler in the women's strawweight division and one of the best wrestlers across women's MMA, and has such a clear advantage in the wrestling department against Zhang Weili, which is foreign because usually Weili is the one who has a grappling advantage against most of her opponents, along with a physicality advantage. But Tatiana Suarez may just be the more physical opponent. She might just be stronger. She definitely is bigger, and she can exploit the grappling of Zhang Weili and get the better end of it. Tatiana Suarez also has really good top control. Once she gets girls down, they do not get back up, and she's got nasty ground and pound, and she also has ever-evolving Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to go with that wrestling game. So there is going to be the threat of the submissions if she is able to get Zhang Weili down and keep her there. And the level of danger that Tatiana Suarez brings to this matchup will be a 7 out of 10. And the second runner-up will be Tatiana Suarez's next opponent, Virna Jandiroba, who's another dangerous wrestler / grappler, not as dominant in that department as Tatiana Suarez, but she does have effective takedowns along with good takedown defense. So if Zhang were to try to return takedowns against her, she could defend them. And Virna Jandiroba does have slick Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, so there's the submissions that Weili would need to look out for. And Virna Jandiroba is extremely tough. She's never been finished, so she could last with Weili throughout the 5 rounds and maybe wear her down. And the third runner-up will be Yan Xiaonan, who is Weili's last opponent, who proved to be a tough challenge for Weili when they last fought. She showed to have a clear advantage in the striking on a technical level. Her only weakness in her game that I believe costed her that fight was her grappling deficiency. She doesn't have the greatest takedown defense, doesn't have the greatest get-up ability, but if she can improve on that defensive wrestling and she can work her way back to another title shot, she could have a really good shot to win a rematch against Zhang Weili down the line. And the next weight class, we have women's flyweight, where once again Valentina Shevchenko is on top, where just last month she dominated Alexa Grasso every single round, completely shut down her game to get her belt back. And we're looking at almost a 6-year title reign for Valentina Shevchenko. Even when she was dethroned, like Amanda, it was only temporary. So it seems like this woman is unstoppable. I mean, she's so good everywhere, dominant on the feet, very good striker, but as she showed in her last fight, she can also wrestle. She can defend takedowns, but she can get takedowns. She can control you, maul you on the ground. But is she really unstoppable though? Because that Grasso loss is still there. The close fight with Taila Santos is still there. She still had a close second fight with Grasso in between the first and the third fight. So there is a way to beat Valentina Shevchenko, and I still believe there are women in this division who can beat her. The women's flyweight division has grown by a lot. It's far more competitive, and I believe the nightmare matchup for Valentina Shevchenko in women's flyweight is Manon the Beast Fiorot. Manon Fiorot is the perfect challenge for Valentina Shevchenko at women's flyweight because, like Valentina, Manon Fiorot is a really good striker. Maybe not to the same level as Valentina in terms of speed, accuracy, or even counter striking, but her striking is good enough to be competitive with Valentina Shevchenko on the feet, and she will put pressure on Valentina Shevchenko in the stand-up, whereas most others would not. Because Manon Fiorot is very confident, she's very aggressive, she's got high volume, she also has good kicks as well, her cardio is good, and she has a size and strength advantage against Valentina Shevchenko, along with really good takedown defense. So if Valentina Shevchenko were to try to mix it up and wrestle against Manon Fiorot, it would be much harder to use her wrestling on Manon than it would be to use on someone like Alexa Grasso. So I believe this would be a striking match where Valentina Shevchenko would be given a run for her money, and the level of danger that Manon the Beast Fiorot brings to this matchup against Valentina Shevchenko will be a 6 out of 10. And the second runner-up is going to be another really good striker at women's flyweight, and her name is Natalia Silva. I believe she poses Valentina Shevchenko a lot of problems in the stand-up, much like Alexa Grasso, except unlike Alexa, Natalia Silva won't just pose problems with her hands, but she'll also pose problems with her kicks. She'll be the only woman to attack Valentina with leg kicks and actually be effective. Body kicks as well. She can also go high with her kicks, very threatening with her high kicks. She's got better footwork than Valentina. She can even match the speed of Valentina Shevchenko, and she's got higher volume striking. She throws way more combinations, which could counter Valentina's reactive, patient, one-shot counter-striking style. And she also has very good takedown defense at 92%, much better than Alexa Grasso. So it'd be much harder for Valentina Shevchenko to implement a wrestling-heavy game plan on Natalia Silva, and Valentina would be in danger of being outpointed if this was a striking match for 5 rounds straight. And the third runner-up is going to be Erin Cold-Blooded Blanchfield, best active wrestler currently at women's flyweight with a mix of high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. She's got the wrestling threat on Valentina Shevchenko, along with a submission threat on Valentina Shevchenko, and very sneaky inside trips, which we've seen Shevchenko get caught by before. Erin Blanchfield also has good top control with a dangerous ground and pound game. She also has good back takes, and we've seen Valentina Shevchenko get her back taken before by Alexa Grasso, by Taila Santos, but Erin Blanchfield, unlike Santos, has the cardio to keep up that wrestling game plan for 5 rounds without getting tired. So she could take down Val round after round without slowing down, and she could literally wrestle her to a decision. And now moving on into the women's bantamweight division. Ever since Amanda the Lioness Nunes laid down the gloves and her 2 belts, we've seen the title change hands twice since, from Raquel Pennington becoming a bantamweight champion, to then Julianna Peña, the Venezuelan vixen, just recently regaining the championship and becoming a 2-time champion. She's on top of this division once again after a 2-year layoff. Julianna Peña is a jiu-jitsu brawler known for her durability, endurance, and heart, iron will. She is a gutsy warrior and a worthy champion. However, there's just one problem. Even with Peña just getting the belt back, she's still in danger of losing it on her first defense once again, because Kayla Harrison is in her weight class, competing in the same era, and that is going to be the nightmare matchup for Julianna Peña. Kayla Harrison is easily the worst matchup for Peña in this division. She has a size and strength advantage. She's a much better wrestler and a really good judoka, and she can easily get takedowns on Julianna Peña, who is not known for the greatest takedown defense anyway. And once Kayla Harrison gets girls down, they do not get back up. She will hold girls down, maul them, do damage with ground and pound. She's very capable of getting submissions. And if this fight does hit the mat, Peña could definitely be in a lot of trouble. Kayla Harrison is capable of finishing this fight on the ground or just blanketing Julianna Peña to a dominant decision. Kayla Harrison could straight up just bully Julianna Peña around the octagon, ragdoll her, big sister her almost. This is a damn near impossible matchup for Julianna Peña, with high difficulty and the level of danger that Kayla Harrison brings to the current champion is an 8 out of 10. And the second runner-up is going to be Amanda, the Lioness Nunes, the last woman to defeat Julianna Peña inside the octagon. They're currently 1-1, and Amanda Nunes just recently teased coming out of retirement. And if she really is coming back, Julianna Peña just might be in trouble, because Amanda Nunes, after Kayla Harrison, is one of Julianna Peña's most dangerous stylistic matchups. Even though Peña beat her that one time, a lot of that came down to Amanda Nunes gassing out, but before she got tired, she was comfortably winning that fight. And when she did not gas out in that second fight, she dominated Julianna Peña every single round and showed to be much better than Julianna Peña everywhere. Amanda Nunes is very physically imposing. She's much stronger than Julianna Peña physically, with a massive power advantage, but she also has a massive skill advantage as well, higher fight IQ, and her striking is better. She's more technical, and she has an advantage in the wrestling, the grappling. She's way better than Julianna Peña on the ground. She was able to switch it up between fights and adapt. She went from being a reckless brawler to an accurate, patient sniper with a wrestling heavy game plan. And Julianna Peña's only chance at beating Amanda Nunes again is if Amanda Nunes once again punches herself out and gasses like the first fight, or if Amanda Nunes comes out of retirement and is washed. But if Amanda Nunes comes back in peak condition at her absolute best, Julianna Peña is going to have an uphill battle to climb if she wants to defeat the GOAT for a second time. And the third runner-up is going to be Norma, the Immortal Dumont. Very solid stand-up, way better striking than Julianna Peña, with very good footwork to stifle that forward pressure of Peña, good leg kicks, good body kicks. She can go high with her kicks as well. Good cardio for 5 rounds, good takedown defense, but can even get takedowns of her own. And then Irene Aldana, a very solid boxer with one-shot knockout power and improving takedown defense, and also very good Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu if the fight does hit the mat, with good cardio as well and good pressure. Moving on to the men's flyweight division, the men's flyweight champion is, and still, Alexandre Pantoja, who's managed to defend his title not once, but twice. He is right now the best flyweight in the world. He's beaten almost everyone on the flyweight roster in the top 10. He is so good everywhere the fight goes. He's dangerous on the feet. He's got good pressure. He's a very effective brawler with one-shot knockout power. He's extremely tough, but his wrestling game is good. His jiu-jitsu game is really good. His back takes are good, and he's got good 5-round cardio. It's going to take a lot to take the belt from this guy, but if there's anyone right now with a chance at defeating Alexandre Pantoja, I believe it's going to be Kai Don't Blink Kara-France. Very, very underrated shot at winning the fight. They had a very close fight a long time ago on The Ultimate Fighter, but what makes him a dangerous fight for Pantoja is he's a better striker on a technical level, but he can also go blow for blow. He can brawl with Pantoja, but I think he's got a power advantage. Pantoja relies a lot on his chin. He's taken a lot of damage in his last few fights, and if anyone in this division could crack the chin of Pantoja, it's Kai Kara-France. But Kai Kara-France also has good takedown defense, but on the ground, he's very sound defensively, good submission defense, good at returning to his feet. Pantoja's best submission is the rear naked choke. Kai has good rear naked choke defense, and I believe even when it comes down to cardio, I did say Pantoja has good cardio, but he can slow down, and I even think Kai has a cardio advantage over Alexandre Pantoja. So if Pantoja does start to slow down and he becomes the nail in this fight and he cannot work his grappling and it hits the late rounds, Kai Kara-France could even get a stoppage late in the fight. And the level of danger that Kai Kara-France brings to this matchup is a 5.8 out of 10, and the runner-up will be Amir Albazi. With Muhammad Makhachev out of the picture, Amir Albazi is like the next best wrestler you can find in the flyweight division, and he's someone who I believe could actually threaten Pantoja in that department. Usually Pantoja has a wrestling threat over everyone he faces at flyweight, but this time I think the roles will be reversed. I think in this fight, he's going to be the one who needs to worry about the takedowns of his opposition. Amir Albazi can take him down, he can control him on the ground, but he's also extremely tough, so he could tough out some damage from Pantoja on the feet before getting his takedowns. He could neutralize the submission game of Pantoja from the top position, and he could potentially blanket him to a decision. And now the next weight class I'm going to talk about is the men's bantamweight division, and the new men's bantamweight champion is Merab the Machine Dvalishvili, who just dethroned Sugar Sean O'Malley, dominated him for 5 rounds straight, and Merab is an absolute problem. He's got unlimited cardio, he's extremely tough, but his wrestling game is also very good, and his striking is very underrated, and he's got relentless pressure. This guy is a literal juggernaut, and he's very hard to beat. But if there's one guy in the division who may have the best chance at dethroning Merab, it's going to be Umar Nurmagomedov, the only one in this division who can go up against the wrestling of Merab because of that Dagestani Sambo wrestling background. I believe he'd be very hard for Merab to take down. He can defend Merab's takedowns, but he can also threaten Merab on the feet. I believe he is a better striker with a power threat, and I believe Merab's only real advantage in this fight up against Umar Nurmagomedov is his cardio. And unless Umar Nurmagomedov's gas tank fails him, then I do think Merab is going to have a very hard time up against the style of Umar Nurmagomedov. And these Dagestanis seem to have plot armor. They always seem to be scripted to win. So I'll not be surprised if Umar is the one to dethrone Merab Dvalishvili. And the level of danger that Umar Nurmagomedov brings to this matchup against Merab Dvalishvili will be a 7 out of 10. And now moving on to the featherweight division, where the new featherweight champion for the first time in 5 years is Ilia El Matador Topuria, who we just saw in February earlier this year destroy Alexander the Great Volkanovski, knocking him out inside 2 rounds, which Ilia was the guy I picked as the nightmare matchup for the then champ Volkanovski, and that pretty much aged well. And now the world is Topuria's. He's on top of the featherweight division. I mean, this guy is the complete package. He can do it all. Dangerous in the stand-up. Maybe the best boxer in the featherweight division. Very good inside the pocket. And he's got nukes for hands, one-shot knockout power, devastating body shots. But he also has a very solid wrestling game, good Brazilian jiu-jitsu. He can mix it up. He can get takedowns. He can beat you anywhere the fight goes. But the nightmare matchup for Ilia Topuria is going to be his next opponent, which is Max Blessed Holloway, former UFC featherweight champion and current UFC BMF champion. Max Holloway has so much experience competing at a top level for so many years. Only Alexander Volkanovski has been able to beat this current version of Max Holloway in the featherweight division. But outside of that, Max Holloway has looked virtually unstoppable. This is like the final boss fight for Ilia El Matador Topuria. And I think Max Holloway may pose some unique challenges to Ilia Topuria from his last opponent, Alexander Volkanovski, and stylistically this could be a way harder fight because unlike Volk, Max is still in his prime. Max Holloway is way more durable than Volkanovski. Granite chin, never been knocked out before, so Max could take the shots of Ilia. Knocking out Max is going to be 10 times harder, but Max Holloway also has another thing Volk didn't have, a height advantage. And Max is good at using his height to his advantage against shorter opponents, apart from Volkanovski. He's got a very effective jab, good footwork, good at keeping distance between himself and his opponents. And he's developed a newfound ability to counterpunch and sit down on his punches when he does it. And we've seen through this, he's been able to knock out opponents who overcommit against him. And Max Holloway also has more volume in his striking than Ilia Topuria, and he's got great 5-round cardio. He only gets stronger as the rounds go on. And even though Topuria on paper should have the boxing advantage, I believe Max has good enough boxing to keep up with Ilia in that department. But on top of that, I think Max Holloway has more tools on the feet. I think he's a way more versatile striker. He's way better with kicks. He also is very good at utilizing that high kick, which Ilia Topuria has shown a vulnerability to. And he's got good spinning back kicks to the body as well. Good at throwing knees up the middle against shorter opponents. Those are things that Topuria would need to watch out for. And I'm expecting Max Holloway to test Ilia Topuria like no other has. And the level of danger that Max Holloway brings to the current featherweight champion will be a 7 out of 10. And the second runner-up will be Diego Lopez. Diego Lopez, top 3 featherweight contender. This man has looked nothing short of impressive in his UFC run. He is a very dangerous fight for Ilia Topuria because he's an absolute tank in the featherweight division. 5'11". He's got a height and a size advantage against Ilia Topuria, but he can match the power of Topuria. If not, he might be even more powerful than Ilia Topuria. Ilia's got to watch out for that knockout power of Diego. But to go with how dangerous Diego is on the feet, he's also very solid on the ground. And that's an area where Ilia Topuria excels. But I believe Diego Lopez can match him on the ground because he also has high-level Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, if not even better Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu than Ilia Topuria. So not only would Ilia be in danger in the stand-up, but if he wants to mix it up and try to take the fight to the ground, he'd also be putting himself at risk of getting submitted. Diego Lopez is a threat to Ilia everywhere, and if this guy can manage his gas tank and his pacing, this guy could be a problem for Ilia in the future. And next up, we have the lightweight division, where and still your 3-time defending lightweight champion is Islam Makhachev. This guy is a dominant force in the division. He's proven himself to be one of the greatest of all time. Like, he's up there. He's tied with Khabib for arguably the greatest lightweight of all time. Extremely dominant, dangerous everywhere, very good on the feet, very technical on the feet, knockout power as well, but very dominant with his grappling skills. He's like Khabib if Khabib had really good striking, which makes this guy absolutely scary. However, there is one man in the division who I believe is a threat to Islam and may just be the man to beat him, and his last performance just further proved my point, and that man is Arman Tsarukyan, coming off a semi-dominant win over Charles do Bronx Oliveira. Not as impressive as when Islam did it, but this guy, like I've said many times before, matches Islam in the wrestling department, and he's very physically strong, much like Islam. This will be the one opponent where Makhachev is not going to have a significant wrestling and strength advantage over. And on the feet, it's very competitive. Arman has very good body kicks, but also very good boxing, I believe, to match Islam Makhachev. And he can also defend takedowns of Islam Makhachev. And he has potential to make this fight really close and maybe even steal a decision from the pound-for-pound #1 and current lightweight champion, Islam Makhachev. And the level of danger that Arman brings to this matchup against Islam will be a 6 out of 10. And now moving on to the welterweight division, where the welterweight champion is Belal, remember the name, Muhammad, who shocked the world last summer against Leon Rocky Edwards, where he dominated him for 5 rounds straight, out wrestling him. And Belal Muhammad, this guy is an absolute tank. Very solid wrestling game along with very underrated striking, great 5-round cardio, extremely durable, extremely hard to finish, great chin, and he's just improving every single fight. Even for a guy at his age, he's always getting better, which is just scary for a lot of these welterweight contenders. But the nightmare matchup for Belal Muhammad is going to be Shavkat Nomad Rakhmonov. Shavkat Nomad Rakhmonov has 100% takedown defense, so he may have the takedown defense to nullify any wrestling threat of Belal Muhammad. And on the feet, I believe he's better, more technical, but also has a lot of power to threaten Belal, do damage in the stand-up. But Shavkat Rakhmonov also has good grappling offense. He's good at getting his own takedowns, and he could potentially get down Belal and beat him at his own game. We've seen Leon Edwards in certain moments was able to out-grapple Belal, take his back, even do damage with ground and pound at the end. And I could easily see Shavkat Rakhmonov capitalizing on the grappling, ground fighting success that Leon had and doing even better. And the level of danger that Shavkat Rakhmonov brings to this matchup will be a 7 out of 10. And the runner-up will be Kamaru, the Nigerian Nightmare Usman. Lots of experience as a former dominant champion, which could help him in this fight. Very good fight IQ. He's got the wrestling to match Belal Muhammad, so I do believe the wrestling would cancel each other out, and this would mainly be a stand-up fight, where I believe Usman could challenge him on the feet because he does have very improved striking under Trevor Whitman. He's got a good jab. He does have power to threaten Belal Muhammad, and he does have the 5-round cardio to keep up with Belal Muhammad. And even though Usman isn't necessarily in his prime anymore, what he did show in that last fight against Khamzat is he can still compete with these younger guys, and I do believe he could make a fight with Belal very competitive. And next up, we have the middleweight division, where the middleweight champion is Dricus Du-Plessis, where he just recently eliminated one of the nightmare matchups I had for him. and settled it with his arch rival Israel, the last stylebender, Adesanya. This guy has plot armor. He may not be the most technically sound fighter. His style looks very sloppy and weird, but it works. He makes up for his technical deficiency with his physical strength combined with his really good wrestling, BJJ skills, and his toughness and his power. He just seems to overwhelm almost everyone he's in there with. However, he is far from unbeatable, and if there is someone who could challenge him, who could be a nightmare matchup for Dricus Du-Plessis, that man is going to be a familiar foe, someone who Dricus took the belt from, but by split decision. That man is Sean Strickland, a very frustrating style for DDP to go up against, because whereas DDP is like the best finisher in the weight class, Sean Strickland is the hardest guy to finish at middleweight because his striking defense is so good. But if he does get hit, he can take a shot, and he has great takedown defense to nullify the offensive wrestling of Dricus. And if Dricus does take him down, he can't hold Sean down long enough to do any damage or to work submissions. And on the feet, Sean Strickland is much better than Dricus. He's more technical. He was finding a home for that jab. His boxing overall is just better than Dricus Du-Plessis, and he's got the 5-round cardio to keep up with him. He never loses focus. He's always in the fight, always locked in. He's not going to get caught lacking like Adesanya did in those late rounds. And in a way, he kind of matches DDP's freak, because whereas DDP has that awkward style that throws off his opponents, Sean Strickland also has an awkward style, so he's almost familiar with the awkwardness of Dricus, so it doesn't faze Sean Strickland like it would faze someone else. So if these two do run it back, there is a very good chance that Sean Strickland could get this one back. He could get his title back in a rematch, and the level of danger that Sean Strickland brings to this matchup will be a 6.2 out of 10. Not so much danger, but more so high difficulty, just because Strickland doesn't have the greatest finishing ability, but he is a difficult style matchup for DDP, as shown in that last fight. And if Dricus does not finish Sean Strickland, again, it will be a hard fight for Dricus Du-Plessis. And the second runner-up will be Khamzat Boris Chimaev, who is more dangerous than Strickland. But the reason why I have him behind Sean is because I do not trust his cardio. Whenever he cannot get an early finish against a high-level opponent, he does struggle, and an early finish against DDP is not guaranteed, but it is possible, and that early going of the fight is going to be crucial for Dricus Du-Plessis. The big question is going to be, can Dricus survive the early rounds against Khamzat? Khamzat will have a clear wrestling advantage against Dricus Du-Plessis. He can easily take him down and control him, manhandle him on the ground. I think he may be stronger, and he can just maul him on the ground. And there's potential for an early finish, either by ground and pound or submission for Khamzat Chimaev. And if against Whitaker, if he does show improved cardio, I'm going to be more confident in his chances against DDP. And the next weight class we have is the light heavyweight division, where the light heavyweight champion is Alex Pereira, who's proven to be a dominant force ever since moving up to light heavyweight. This man at light heavyweight is way more dangerous than he was in the middleweight division. Best striker in the UFC by far, with a stick of dynamite in both hands, but particularly that left hook. Devastating calf kicks, just devastating with every strike he throws, and he's only getting better every fight we see him. He is fully in his prime. He is an unstoppable force. However, if there's one man that can beat him in this division, and I mean one man, because if not him, it's going to be no one, and that man is Magomed Ankalaev. I believe he is the last man left standing who could challenge Alex Pereira. He could potentially hold his own on the feet, but Where he mainly threatens Alex Pereira is the wrestling, which we don't see him use it often, but when he does, his wrestling is very effective, and we've not yet seen Alex get tested against a strong, well-rounded fighter or wrestler, at least not since Jan Blachowicz. Jan was the last man to truly test his grappling, but someone to the level of Ankalaev we've not seen Pereira go up against, and Ankalaev has potential to manhandle Alex on the ground and maybe even maul him for 5 rounds to win a dominant decision. And we've been seeing lately these wrestlers are taking over in title fights. So if this guy can get past Alexander Rakic, then he will be undeniable for a title shot at Alex Pereira, and he just might be the chosen one to dethrone Poatan. But we're going to have to find out, and the level of danger that Magomed Ankalaev brings to this matchup against Alex Pereira is a 6 out of 10. And the final weight class we have is the heavyweight division, where the heavyweight champion is Jon Bones Jones, undeniably the greatest fighter of all time in the UFC and in MMA, regardless of PEDs or not. Dominant light heavyweight champion, went from dominating that division to then now taking over the heavyweight division. He's got a fight lined up with Stipe Miocic in November, but that's not really the man who I see as a threat to Jon Jones. The guy who I think has the best chance at beating Jon is none other than Tom Aspinall. Tom Aspinall has the youth advantage. At this point, he's got an athletic advantage over Jon Jones, and he is well-rounded, dangerous everywhere, dangerous for Jon Jones on the feet, way faster. He can threaten him at kicking range, but then even in the pocket in boxing range, he's dangerous for Jon Jones, and he's got one-shot knockout power, but also very high-level grappling. And if Jon Jones were to try to mix it up and wrestle against Tom, it might be extremely difficult to impose his wrestling game on Aspinall. Like he was able to do against Gon, he may not be able to lean to that against Tom. And I think the level of danger that Aspinall presents to Jon Jones is a solid 7 out of 10. And okay, with Stipe Miocic, there's potential there for him to maybe surprise people. On paper, he does have the style to challenge Jon Jones because he's got size, because he matches the height of Jon and has superior boxing. And we know boxing is a weakness of Jon Jones, but also he's got a very solid wrestling game and very good takedown defense. He could defend takedowns of Jon and could maybe pose problems to him on the feet. My only issue with Stipe Miocic is he's not fought in ages, and he's not in his prime. So I don't know if we're going to see the best version of Stipe, but I will not underestimate Miocic. However, that's a wrap for my Nightmare Matchup Series 2024 continued. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you agree with these Nightmare Matchups? Like and subscribe, and peace out. See y'all for the next one in 2025.